doing amazing things on orbit. And in addition, I'm extremely proud of the international partnership. You know, this flight exemplifies the partnership and how we are continuing to advance human spaceflight with what we do every day, and will lead us to not only doing great things on the space station, but doing even more in our space exploration programs going forward. So thank you, Dan, and thank you all for being here today and helping us celebrate what is one more milestone for us to fly our crews back to the International Space Station again.
All right, thank you, Kathy. And now we will go to Steve Stitch, the manager of NASA's Commercial Crew Program. Steve?
Thanks, Dan. It's great to be here today. It's an exciting time in Commercial Crew. Last week I was talking to Benji Reed, my counterpart at SpaceX, and we were reminiscent about a year ago where we had the one crew flight in front of us with Bob and Doug. And now as we sit here today, we're talking about Crew 2, our first crewed flight of this year. We plan, in our program, we planned 3 crewed flights. We'll have the Crew 2 mission, which we'll detail today. We'll have Crew 3 later in the year, in the fall time frame, and we'll also have our first Boeing crewed flight right now, nowhere in September, the crewed flight test this year. So we have 3 crewed missions this year, and lots of planning also into the flights for next year. If I just step back, we also have an orbital flight test for Boeing this year in the Commercial Crew Program. But if I look at the vehicles we have today, you know, Crew 1's on orbit, and it's doing great. We just surpassed last week 100 days on orbit, and that vehicle is doing wonderfully. We check it out every week, and it's doing fine. You know, Crew 2 right now, the launch date is no earlier than April the 20th. We'll probably adjust that a little bit to more optimize some of the orbital mechanics and the launch opportunities as we go forward. We really want to get that flight in between the Soyuz operations, where we have a couple Soyuz vehicles that I know Joel will touch on, and then the Beta cut out in May. And then we have some dark landing opportunities. So we really want to get that flight flown in that time frame. And then, of course, we'll return the Crew 1 vehicle and its crew, who's doing a great job on orbit, probably late April, early May. We really want to get that flight flown and back down before we have dark landing opportunities around May 9th. This is an exciting flight for us. It's the first time we have not only another JAXA crew member in Aki, but we also have a European Space Agency crew member in Thomas. We're excited about that. We're excited about this Crew Dragon, which has some enhanced capabilities over the Crew 1 vehicle, and I know Benji will talk about that. We have enhanced abort capability. We have some enhanced prop capability, making it an even safer vehicle, and some crew improvements inside the cockpit as well. We're about to embark upon our first port relocation on orbit very soon, and we're looking at the late March, early April timeframe. We'll move the Crew 1 vehicle from where it is on the forward port on Space Station. We'll move it up to the Zenith port to make room for the Crew 2 launch. Overall, just an exciting time. I can't thank our team enough. You know, over the last year or so, we have worked on reuse of the vehicle. This is our first flight where we'll have a reused Dragon. This is the vehicle that Bob and Doug flew back on Demo 2, and we'll have our first reused booster. And we've worked through that certification effort with people both on the NASA's team and the SpaceX team, and had our review last Friday, and we're in really good shape on reuse. And then one final thing, you know, it's a real busy time frame in April on the ISS. And we're right now in the process of looking at the orbit flight test and what to do with that flight. You know, we've had some unfortunate weather here in the Houston area where we lost about a week of time in some critical software testing. The vehicle's coming together nicely. We recovered from a power-up anomaly well, and we're about 2 weeks down from where we'd like to be, and so we're in the process of figuring out the next step on OFT2. I'm certainly proud of our commercial crew team. It's already been a busy year, and we look forward to more busyness as we get on to Crew 2. I'll turn it back over to you, Dan.
All right. Thank you, Steve. Now we'll go to Joel Montalbano, NASA's Program Manager for the International Space Station. Joel?
Thank you, Dan. Welcome again to today's press brief. As you heard from both Steve and Kathy, we have another busy spring on board the International Space Station. And if you've been watching us for a while, that's standard, but the team has just been awesome trying to accommodate the different vehicles, the different crewed and uncrewed vehicles as they come and go. And as Steve said, one of our jobs is to continually look at a flight plan to make sure what we're doing is maximizing the use of the International Space Station. So we will adjust when these vehicles are ready, and we'll fly accordingly. For the Crew 2 mission, we've done a number of reviews already completed, and while we do have a handful of reviews still to go, we are working towards the April date, the April 20th, or as Steve mentioned earlier, based on trajectory, we may move it a couple days to the right, but we're working in that direction, and the teams are ready to go. In addition to the 2 NASA astronauts, we're excited to see a European Space Agency astronaut fly on this vehicle. We're excited to see another Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut fly. This mission, as stated earlier, will stay approximately 6 months, so a full increment. In addition to delivering the crews, this vehicle will deliver about 200+ kilograms of pressurized cargo to the International Space Station to enhance our science and utilization program, to help us in technology development, and to help us in low Earth orbit commercialization activities on board the International Space Station. Last year, we celebrated 20 years of continuous human presence on board the International Space Station. And over those 20 years, you've seen changes in how we operate the International Space Station. While our recent agreements with the American private industry has allowed us to bring more people to space, more people to the International Space Station, and has allowed us to increase the low Earth orbit commercialization activities that has made a priority at the agency. So it's an exciting time. We're very excited to be working with our SpaceX and Boeing providers, as well as our other cargo providers with Northrop Grumman, as well as Sierra Nevada Corporation. So in closing, I want a huge thanks to the Commercial Crew Program, a huge thanks to SpaceX. From the international partnership, we're ready for these vehicles. We're excited with the relationship we have. We look forward to an awesome Crew 2 mission and an outstanding expedition. So back over to you, Dan. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Joel. Next up, we're going to go to Benji Reed, Senior Director for Human Spaceflight Programs at SpaceX. Benji?
Hi there. Happy Monday. In just about 7 weeks, we're going to be launching the Crew 2 mission, as was well talked about here by Kathy, Steve, and Joel. On behalf of SpaceX, all of our employees, our vendors, our families, and everybody, thank you. Thank you to NASA, to ESA, and to JAXA, and especially to the crew and to the families of the crew for trusting us with this honor. As we've said before, and every time, it's a sacred honor to make sure that we're going to carry this crew safely to the space station, keep them up there well, keep dragging there ready for them whenever they need it, and bring them home safely. So thank you very much. It's also been fun, a lot of fun to be preparing for this mission. It is amazing to think about. As Steve mentioned, we were just talking the other day about just a year ago, we were in the same spot, looking at launching our first astronauts, Bob and Doug. The first time returning human spaceflight capability to the United States in almost 10 years. And it's crazy to think here we are getting ready for our third flight. And here at SpaceX we have, at least a couple of dozen astronauts in training at any given point in time. And that's a pretty cool thing. And so part of that fun, though, is the crew themselves and getting to know them. So I think we have a photo we can bring up. That's a great picture of Thomas and Megan and Aki and Shane. And we've got that up, and it's good to see that crew there, and they're happy and excited and to be getting ready to go. They've been going through all the training that they needed to do, and our crews as well, our teams, our ground teams as well, being ready to serve them and help them along the way. The next thing coming up, we've got a port relocation. So as we get ready for all the data, this traffic that's coming up at the spaceport, as Kathy called it, is we need to make sure that we've got the right ports ready for which vehicles are going to arrive. As needed, we'll be ready to do a port relocation as early as the end of this month for NASA. We'll work with, of course, the station program to understand exactly when and where they need that to happen. In that case, the Crew 1 crew would enter Dragon, be in their suits, get ready to go, and actually relocate Dragon from the Node 2 forward port to the Node 2 Zenith port. And then that frees up the Node 2 forward port to be ready for another incoming vehicle. After that, we have the launch of Crew 2. And as talked about, everybody is on track and ready for a April 20th launch readiness date. And as Joel mentioned, we'll work closely with the ISS program, the Commercial Crew program, and also particularly looking at the physics of it and the orbital mechanics of when are we going to be able to actually, go to the space station, and that kind of helps define our opportunities. So we'll be working with that, and it'll be around that time there in the second half of April. Finally, after the Crew 2 gets up there, and they start to do a process of a handover with the Crew 1 crew, and that lasts for a few days, and then the Crew 1 crew will return home, and we'll bring them safely home. And all of these operations are critical and very important. All the focus here at SpaceX and with our partners at NASA and at Jackson and ESA is to ensure the crew safety and ensure the reliability of the vehicles and the operations. So we'll be focused very much on that. Speaking of the vehicles that we need to fly reliably and safely, let's take a look. I think we've a picture coming up here of Dragon. This is the Dragon that's going to fly for Crew 2. This is the same Dragon that flew the Demo 2 mission that carried Bob and Doug. The refurbishment of this vehicle has been going very well. It's will be our first flight-proven Dragon for crew missions. Obviously, we've done quite a number of flight-proven Dragons on the CRS-1 program for all of those cargo vehicles. Many of those were flight-proven, and now we're getting ready to do our first one here with this Crew 2 mission. So it's a beautiful vehicle. It worked well for Bob and Doug, and it'll carry this new crew safely to the station and home. We also have another picture here of Falcon 9. And again, this Falcon 9 also has a history with the crew program. This is the same Falcon 9 booster that flew the Crew 1 crew up. And so that vehicle has started its refurbishment process, and that's progressing very well. And we'll be ready in time for our April 20th readiness to, again, safely carry the crew up to orbit. Other items that are coming up soon, near the end of this month, we'll also be doing our Crew Equipment Interface Test, or the CEIT test. That's a test where basically the crew goes down and checks out the vehicle, kind of for the last time. They get to walk down the vehicle, see exactly what's going on in there, make sure that everything's set the way they expect it to be. Obviously, they've been in the vehicle quite a bit, both from an inspection viewpoint and a training viewpoint while it was here in Hawthorne. But now they'll go down at the Cape and they'll do that final inspection down there. And that's an important test. We'll get through that. We've been completing a number of other tests. We've completed a number of rounds of our software preparation and testing. Our software is all locked down. And software tests are joint tests that we do with the station program to ensure that the Dragon software and computers will talk well with the station computers. That's all gone very well as we run through those. We've also run through all of our certification efforts. Those are closing out. We completed a major review with station for readiness to be able to dock to station as part of that certification process, and we're continuing through the remaining certification items that are normal on this timeline as we move towards launch. So we are excited and ready to get going. Obviously, we are continuing to check all the boxes, triple check under all the rest and everywhere to make sure that we're ready to fly this crew. And as we always say, we won't fly until we're ready. As important as it is to keep station staffed, keep the astronauts going up and coming home, keep the science running and the fundamental purpose of station, most important is the crew's safety and ensure that we are ready to fly. As part of that process, we'll go through our flight readiness review. We do internal flight readiness reviews here at SpaceX with NASA involved, and we also do joint readiness reviews with the agency that are very important. And then, of course, just before launch, we do our launch readiness review. As we move through those gates, we'll confirm that we're ready to go. Again, it's truly an honor to be here to represent all of the many thousands of people who work hard on all of these missions, the sacrifices that they make, and the fun that they have to get ready to go fly this crew. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Benji. Now we're going to go out to Hiroshi Sasaki, the JAXA Vice President and Director General, Human Spaceflight Technology Directorate for JAXA.
Thank you for the introduction. I'm Hiro Sasaki, Vice President with JAXA, responsible for human spaceflight and space exploration. First of all, on behalf of JAXA, I'd like to sincerely thank the NASA leadership and all the members who worked so hard for the Crew 2 launch preparations and continuing ISS operations under the tough COVID-19 situation. I'm very pleased astronaut Aki Hoshide will board the Crew 2 and participate in the long-term mission in the ISS, following the ongoing mission pursued by astronaut Noguchi. During Hoshide's stay, a variety of experiments will be performed, including the advanced Eclipse demonstration for future space exploration, CubeSat deployment to expand the utilization of space by various sectors. Aki Hoshide is now ready to launch. I hope Japanese astronauts continue to play an important role in promoting the human space program and explorations. Astronauts Wakata and Furukawa are also assigned for upcoming flights respectively, and furthermore, JAXA plans to recruit new astronauts around fall. I'm sure that the Crew 2 mission is a symbol of enhanced international partnership. I think this is the first launch of NASA, ESA, and JAXA astronauts who will fly to the ISS together. In addition, commercial partners, including SpaceX, are providing much more capability to the ISS. This partnership will achieve more fruitful results from the ISS and the exploration. Thank you. Back to you, Dan.
All right, thank you, Hiroshi. And now we are going to go to David Parker, the Director of Human and Robotic Exploration for ESA. David?
Thank you very much, Dan, and good day to one and all. First of all, thank you for the chance to participate in this briefing. I would like to say that it's a particularly important day for ESA. The 1st of March is not only St. David's Day, but also the first day in the office for our new Director General, Josef Aschbacher. Therefore, I'd like to pass on a few words on his behalf. We're delighted that Thomas Pesquet is the first European to fly to the ISS on a US commercial crew vehicle, and we appreciate the tremendous work that has been done to prepare this flight. Matthias Maro will fly to the station on a US vehicle later this year, and so will our future European astronauts will follow him in the months and years to come. So Mission Alpha is Thomas' second to the International Space Station. It comes at a time of unparalleled growth in Europe's space exploration program. And I think we're really looking forward to an exciting decade of discovery and innovation from Columbus, Europe's science lab aboard the ISS. Indeed, I think I would say that we're entering the golden age of ISS utilization because of the fact, thanks to the new US vehicles, of having 7 crew aboard the station. It's already providing a dramatic increase in the number of science hours available to us. So Thomas' mission will involve human research, biology, fluid physics, material science, technology development, earth science, and even education projects. With all this utilization going on, it's why we are in the middle of a major kind of midlife update to the Columbus laboratory. So the updates include the new Columbus Ka-band data terminal, giving high-speed data links via ESA's data relay satellite network, the Bartolomeo commercial platform that will become operational mounted on Columbus, and upgrades to experiment racks and the IT infrastructure of Columbus. This prospect of the next decade of work using in low Earth orbit is also why 2 weeks ago we launched a call to select the new European astronauts. and perhaps in a global first, launched the Para-Astronaut Feasibility Project to prepare a flight opportunity for a physically disabled astronaut to carry out a full mission. And we have many other aspects of our future exploration program to look forward to. But maybe my final thought, beyond all the technology and all the science, I do recall that we do global exploration as a partnership to inspire all humanity and especially the next generation. And I think this is even more important in these difficult times of COVID. So I can tell you that the passion and the commitment of everyone at ESA, alongside all the international partners, is propelling us into this new decade of space exploration. And I know Thomas Pesquet is eager and ready and willing to make his contribution. So best wishes from the new Director General, from myself, and from all the team at ESA. And let's keep exploring together. Thank you. Back to you, Dan.
All right, thank you very much, David. So now we're going to jump into the Q&A. As a reminder, if you are dialed into our media line, press *1 to get into the queue. And if your question is answered, press *2 to jump back out. And if you're on social media, jump on Twitter and use the hashtag #AskNASA. All right, so our first caller that we will go with today is Joey Roulette from The Verge. Joey?
Hey, thanks for doing this. Question for Benji. I just wanted you to speak a little bit more into what you guys have learned from refurbishing the crew Dragon vehicle as opposed to the cargo Dragon vehicles. And what kind of challenges and costs does SpaceX avoid by doing that refurb in Florida instead of shipping it out of state? And then just one other question for Joel. When do you expect a deal to be reached for with the U.S. company for that Soyuz seat and for MS-18? Thanks.
Before I do, I just want to do a quick go back. It was very inspiring to hear both the JAXA and the ESA representatives speak today, just now. And I want to say how exciting and how cool it is for us to have this international crew. I don't think I said enough about that, and it's worth reiterating how important it is that we have this international partnership and our opportunity to be able to fly Thomas and Aki. And I think those are great words just now about passion and opening the new space age. It's great to do it, and it's great to do it for all of humanity. And these programs like looking to be able to fly a physically disabled astronaut, these are really, really great. And so thank you guys, and thank you both and all of your teams and everyone there for flying with SpaceX too. Now on to the question about refurbishment and flight-proven Dragons. So from the beginning, it's important here at SpaceX. We want to make sure we really understood how do you refly. We've said it before, and it's always worth repeating. You don't jump in an airline or in an airplane, fly from one coast to the other coast, push it off into the ocean, and you're done with that one flight. That's a very expensive process, and if you do that with spaceflight, it continues to be almost prohibitively expensive. So as we started, at SpaceX from the beginning, we said, how do we refly? So this kind of key, this golden key to getting into this new space age is all about being able to refly and reuse vehicles. So we designed Dragon from the beginning with some of that in mind. The same with Falcon. We continue to evolve and learn over the years, and how do we return vehicles, and how do we return them in a way that we can safely and quickly refurbish them and confidently and reliably fly them again. And so we did a lot of that on the Dragon program, on the Cargo Dragon program, and we took all of those lessons and fed them into the design of Dragon 2. So Dragon 2 now, of course, is the line of Dragons that's flying crew and is flying cargo now. And that new design of Dragon has all those lessons from many years and many flights of the original Cargo Dragons, bringing that to bear as we go through that. And one of the number one things that you have to worry about is water intrusion. So salt water is very corrosive. It's not a great thing when you want to keep something, keep your physical materials sound and especially easy to refurbish and to reuse. So we do everything we can to prevent water intrusion. Teams did a lot of great work on that, even on the original Cargo Dragon, to prevent that. And then the design, again, kind of from the ground up of the Dragon 2 vehicle has prevented that. As we've continued to go through the first refurbishment process for a crew vehicle, we've been looking at things closely. Obviously, number one always is crew safety. And so there are elements that we think about, are we going to replace these? Are we ready to fully certified internally? We're ready to qualify that this particular subsystem or component is ready to be reused, and then we go through a process with NASA to make sure that they agree, that we're all agreeing that these components and these subsystems are ready to reuse. I can happily say the vast majority of the vehicle is flight proven. In this case, we are changing some valves, for example. We're changing some of the thermal protection system. On crew vehicles, we tend to fly. We always fly the new parachutes, and so some of those are new, but otherwise, it's really the same vehicle that's very carefully inspected, carefully prepared, refurbished as needed, and ready to fly. It's been a great process to learn there. The other thing that you're learning as you go through this is like, okay, well, how much more do I need to do for the next time? And so we're always learning and always applying that back into our systems. I think you asked a question about, what are the benefits of doing this down at the Cape? Well, it's the same idea if we go back to, aircraft-like operations, right? We want this to be, ultimately going to space needs to be like going to the airport and getting on an airplane. So you don't take your airplane that you want to fly, now you're not going to push it off in the ocean, but you're going to refit, but now you got to send it all the way back to the factory and get it ready for its next flight. That doesn't make a lot of sense, right? You don't want to do that. It's still very expensive. So what you do, of course, in an airplane is it's on the ground, and we refuel it, check it out, do the inspections, whatever they need to do. They can even do some repairs right there at the airport, and then you refly. The same idea ultimately for spacecraft. You want to be able to launch, return, and prepare for reflight, basically in the same area that all in the same area, all those operations happening in the same area. And so we've been driving for a number of years towards refurbishment at the Cape. We've already been doing it. This refurbishment is part of that flow. In fact, when new Dragons come off the line here in Hawthorne, they go down to the Cape, they actually go through some final work in preparation for flight at the Cape anyway, so we've always had that capability. Have an awesome team down there that works very hard, and they've got multiple Dragons in flow, just like the team here, that are building all the components and building the new Dragons. And so bringing all of that experience to bear makes it a great process to do down at the Cape. So we're glad to have that going on. And I think the other question was for Joel.
Thanks, Joey. Good question. Our long-term goal is to continue flying NASA astronauts on Soyuz and to have cosmonauts flying on the U.S. crewed vehicles, and we're working towards that goal. For this specific procurement, we're in a blackout period for now, but my plan or my goal is by the end of next week to be able to give you a status on where we are with that procurement.
All right. Thank you, Joel. Just a reminder for those on our phone line, please try to keep it to one question for now so we can get through as many as we can. We'll come back for follow-ups. Next, we will go to Stephen Clark with Spaceflight Now.
Hi, Stephen Clark for Spaceflight Now. My question is for Benji, and maybe Steve can chime in. Steve hinted at some abort system enhancements, some prop enhancements, and some changes in the cockpit for this mission, those upgrades. What do those upgrades entail? Is this the first time those are flying, or is this sort of just an update of the spacecraft to get it, to get it to the status that the Crew Dragon on Crew 1 flew in? Just can you talk about those? And also, briefly, if I could, Steve, our launch dates, do they look more favorable before April 20th or after April 20th? Just want to get a feel of which way the launch may be moving. Thanks.
Great. I'll tell you a couple of my favorite ones, and then Stitch, if you have some that you want to talk about, we can talk about those too. In terms of what we do with Dragon to make sure that it's safer and even safer as we continue to learn and go through the process. One of the ones that I'll talk about is basically updating certain elements of the structure to ensure that when we come and when we splash down in the ocean, there's basically this phenomenon that can occur. It's a secondary splash, basically secondary impact, where the water, you've hit the water and the water comes back up and it can basically hit the hull, right, hit the structure. And it's interesting, the physics and the dynamics of it. There are just the right combination of wave heights and winds and the velocity of the vehicle as it comes in, that secondary splash can hit pretty hard. And so we've done a lot to analyze for that and test for that. And what ultimately that does, of course, is number one, you make the vehicle as strong as you can to withstand that, but you also look at the weather, right? And so you create a lot of limits around the weather, around wind speed, wave height, all these different things that are happening. And as you have those limits around weather, number one, it keeps the crew safe and builds margin for your safety, but it also tends to shrink your availability. And in this case, this would be for landing availability. So one of the things that we've done is we've actually beefed up parts of the structure so that we can expand that window of opportunity to be able to bring the crew home while maintaining all of that safety and all of that margin for the crew. I think this is really important. I think one of the most important updates that we've done on this particular Dragon. And going forward, that'll always be part of the design. Steve, you probably have a couple others that you wanted to mention.
Yeah, thanks, Benji. I'll talk about a few. One of the upgrades on this vehicle is, I would say, improved pad abort performance. So, as you may know, the Dragon is designed to have continuous abort capability from the launch all the way till when it gets in orbit. SpaceX went off and looked at a way to optimize their propellant system and provide a little more propellant for an abort off the pad. And that did a couple things. One, it improved crew safety for should we get into that kind of unfortunate situation for a pad abort where the crew would need to leave the pad for an emergency. And secondly, it really improved launch availability. We can handle a little bit stronger onshore winds and improve launch availability. So that's one of the ones that is my favorite for the flight. Another one, in terms of crew safety, we learned a lot about titanium and nitrogen tetroxide, the oxidizer, and that compatibility. We've enhanced the Super Draco thrusters and removed some titanium from that system, gone to stainless steel kind of material in those, and improved safety there. So those are a couple of the ones that we've done on this flight. I really look at this flight as kind of really an abort enhancement flight. In terms of the question about launch dates and launch opportunities, right now it looks like there's a few more opportunities after April 20th, and so we talked about maybe adjusting the launch a few days to the right for a launch around a couple days after the 20th. We should have about 6 launch dates before the Soyuz cutout, and would give us an opportunity to have about 8 landing opportunities for the crew, 1 vehicle. So Joel and this commercial crew program and SpaceX have been working that very closely to optimize that, ensure we can land safely and then launch safely ahead of this beta cutout that we have coming in May.
All right, thank you, Steve. Next up, we have Bill Harwood with CBS News. Bill?
Yeah, thank you very much. This one's for, I'm not sure who it's for, maybe Kathy. With the increasing flight rate of SpaceX, they're launching lots and lots of rockets, which you can either argue that makes them safer and safer, or it raises the odds that something will happen at some point that could cause a problem getting them off the ground. My question is, how important is it, speaking generically about Soyuz here, not specifics, but how important is it to get the Boeing ship flying and to get seats on Soyuz, really to protect station and protect seats in the case of an issue that might ground SpaceX or vice versa, ground Boeing, to have that second provider available on the U.S. side, and then obviously to have the ability to keep someone on board if a Soyuz had to leave or an American ship. Could you just generically talk about how important it is to get these other vehicles with Americans on board up and flying? Thanks.
Oh, Bill, thank you for that question, because I think it's extremely critical. We've talked about it, and you talked about just a couple of the scenarios that could cause a problem where we don't have as robust a logistics capability for us to keep the station going as we'd like, right? And after following us for a while, we're planners, and we feel like us always flying a US or a USOS crew member up on every single vehicle going up, and also us having multiple providers on the U.S. side is what, protects us from all kinds of contingencies. We really look forward to bringing our second provider line. It not only provides flexibility, it gives SpaceX a chance to be able to have other options opportunities for them. We've been very grateful that SpaceX has been here and as a provider for us and stepped up for us to be able to be flying to the International Space Station while we're bringing the Boeing capability online. But SpaceX has other things they want to do with these vehicles too, right? And we would like them, it goes back to what Joel mentioned, we would like to have them have other commercial opportunities out there. But they've been critical, they've stepped up and supported us and made sure that we've had a consistent U.S. commercial provider during this period where we're bringing our second U.S. commercial provider back online. But you also know, Bill, that if there can be a number of issues that don't have anything to do with the spacecraft that can cause all of the crew members on a vehicle to be able to come down, including a medical emergency on orbit or some issue with one part of the segment. And so we love the fact that we're working towards a capability and moving to have in place the international agreements where we would be able to fly our crew members up on a Soyuz, have the Roscosmos fly their crew members up on one of our two commercial crew providers and move forward into this new age. It gives us the most robust logistics strategy.
All right, thank you, Kathy. Next up, we have Jeff Faust with Space News. Jeff?
Hello. For Steve Stitch, is NASA still looking at any implications from the failed Falcon 9 booster landing a couple of weeks ago and its implications for the Crew 2 launch? And for Benji Reed, are there any details you can share about what SpaceX found out about why that booster failed to land? Thanks.
Yeah, I'll start off and then we'll hand it over to Benji. I would say just like any other anomaly on the Falcon 9, SpaceX has been a tremendous partner inviting NASA to participate in that investigation, and so we have members on that team. We will follow along with SpaceX's investigation and we'll look at that, and that'll be something we'll bring through our program control board and make sure that we have separation from that and understand that anomaly before we go fly. We do that across the Falcon 9 fleet. Our team really follows all the Falcon 9 flights, and we learn from each one. One of the things I really like about what's happening is SpaceX's Starlink flights are pretty far out there in terms of the number of times they've flown a booster. You know, we're about to embark upon our first reuse here for a crewed vehicle. And so what we're doing is we're learning from each of those flights and we're feeding that back into our certification for reuse. So I think it's a great partnership to have those vehicles a little further out there in terms of number of flights. And so as we understand our crew capability and how many flights we can get out of a booster, it just really augments our certification process. And I'll turn it over to Benji.
Great, thank you, Steve. And it's a great question. It's kind of just playing right off from there. It's true, right? The more you fly, the more you learn. So it's just like the more you test, the more you learn. I would never be one to say we should fly less or test less. I'd rather learn everything we can. And that is a great opportunity from these Starlink flights. We get to fly our higher count flight-proven vehicles to take the Starlink satellites to orbit. And in fact, this is a good example. So the anomaly that we saw on this one particularly, it was a higher count vehicle. And some of the components were actually the highest count. They were life leaders. In this case particularly, there was an engine. To give you just a little bit more detail, basically there are covers, we call them boots, over certain parts of the engine. In this case, one of these boots, this was the highest count number of flights that this particular boot designed had seen. And it's important we do this. We know that this is happening. We're studying this. We want to make sure we understand the life process of these flight-proven components and vehicles. This particular boot had a little bit of a hole, basically developed a hole. There's hot gases, of course. I mean, that's what makes the rocket go up. Very hot gases coming out of the engine. But you want those hot gases to be where they're supposed to be and not go where they're not supposed to be. So that boot, a little bit of a hole developed, a little bit of hot gas got to where it's not supposed to be, and it caused that engine to shut down. And that's a great thing about Falcon 9, is we have engine out capability. Plus the vehicle has all of these great systems to autonomously control itself, shut down, abort what it needs to, and in this case it did exactly what it was supposed to do. It cut out that engine, turned that engine off, the vehicle was safe, the vehicle got to orbit, put the satellites exactly where they want to be, primary mission was accomplished. When that booster came to return home, because of the problem with that particular engine, we didn't have enough thrust in order to get back to where we needed to be, and didn't land where we wanted to be in that case. But bottom line is that's a great lesson that we learned from from doing these multi-life, very long life leader type components and vehicles. In terms of going from there, we apply okay, well here's where we need to do more inspections. Here are the kinds of components we need to replace, and here's where we can actually upgrade the systems, right, the algorithms on the vehicle to even further detect and control what the vehicle needs to do. And that's what we're doing as we move forward.
All right, thank you, Benji. We're going to squeeze in a couple of hashtag Ask NASA questions. This first one is for Joel. Been getting a lot of questions about this, so I'm going to combine two from the community at r/SpaceX and from Jacqueline Irving on Twitter. Is the 7th crew member still going to be sleeping in Dragon? And what is the plan to enable a 7th crew compartment? And when we do the handover, where are all of the astronauts going to sleep?
Good question. So on the last Northrop Grumman mission, we flew an additional sleep station that'll be planned to be installed in the Columbus module. So long term, we'll have 5 sleeping stations for the different crew members. During the handovers, the 2 crews work together to kind of plan pre-mission where everybody's going to sleep, and then they'll update in real time. Options maybe we can still have someone sleep in the Dragon module. Maybe we'll have someone sleep in the U.S. airlock. Maybe someone in the Japanese module. Again, these are a short duration mission, somewhere in the order of 5 to 7 days. So it's more of a camp out type scenario. But again, the crews will get together, and once they get there, they'll talk to each other and adjust accordingly. Good question.
All right, thank you, Joel. And for Benji from Scoochie on Twitter, wanted to know, can crew flights carry any cargo in Dragon's trunk, or would it be too dangerous in case of an in-flight abort?
That's a great question. We don't normally plan to fly any cargo in the trunk of Dragon, and it's not particularly because it's dangerous per se, but it does have to do with aborts. We've optimized the trunk for aerodynamic stability in the case of an abort. We've also optimized the CG, the center of gravity, and the mass of that vehicle in case of an abort, in case that Dragon has to get off the Falcon really fast. And so in that case, we actually don't want to have any cargo in the trunk for that specific reason. Great question.
All right, thank you, Benji. And now jumping back over to the phone lines, we're going to go next to Chris Davenport with the Washington Post. Chris?
Hey, guys, thanks. A question about refurbishment, so I guess it's for Benji or maybe Steve. I'm just wondering, how long did it take to refurbish the Crew 2 vehicle after Demo 2, and how do you think that timeline will improve going forward, say after Crew 2, 3, et cetera? And then I just wonder if you have a sense of how many times you want to fly Dragon, how many times you want to reuse it, and if you got any insight into that. I think it was you wanted to do it maybe 5 times. Do you think that's achievable based on what you've seen from this vehicle? Thanks.
Great. I'll start on this one. So in terms of the time frame, certainly the Demo 2 to Crew 2 refurbishment is a process that we took a lot longer on because we wanted to very much understand this vehicle. Because it's the first time we flew a crew vehicle and to station and back, the first time we were refurbishing it to get ready to go. So it was a multi-month process. As we went through that process, as I mentioned earlier, we're learning about what needs to be fully replaced, where we should be inspecting more deeply, what kinds of things we need to do going forward, and looking how to maximally optimize that process on future vehicles. And I think you get it down to just a matter of a couple of months, and I think that's a really good place to be. But long term, as always, as we look towards the future, aircraft-like operations are our goal. In this case, for Dragon and making sure we're safe to fly through, we'll probably kind of tend to be taking kind of in that couple of month range, but we'll see as we go. I don't know if there's any other questions, but I think that answers that one.
All right. Next up, we're going to go to Chelsea Go with space.com. Chelsea?
Hi, how's it going? Chelsea with space.com. You spoke a bit about the crew handoff and kind of the maneuver that they're going to do to switch ports with the Crew 1 vehicle to make room for Crew 2, and then the few days that they're going to spend before Crew 1 departs the space station. Could you speak a bit more about that process, what that handoff will look like, as it's the first time that a full Crew Dragon crew will be handing it off to another full Crew Dragon crew?
Let's see, Steve Stitch, maybe I can take the handover one, and then you can talk about the port relocation.
Sounds good.
All right, so for the handover, I mean, handovers are something that we've done multiple times on board the International Space Station. The first thing the crew members will do is there'll be an emergency review of the emergency processes. What happens if we have an event on board, a fire event, a depressurization event, or a toxic atmosphere event, and how do we act to that? How do we react to that? So that's going to be the number one thing that the crew members are going to be doing. And that'll happen within the first day. And then the next days, and I'm thinking we're probably talking a 5 to 7 day handover between the two crews. They'll be talking about the different processes, what life is on board the International Space Station, how they react to different maintenance activities, any science activities. The crew members will be talking about some of the research work we do and some of the challenges we have in working with the different facilities or the operations of those facilities. And again, it'll take about 5 to 7 days. And so, Steve, let me hand it over to you, and you can talk a little bit about the relocation.
Yeah, thanks, Joel. So the relocation is an important activity before we actually do the handover. Right now, the Dragon spacecraft is on the forward port of the space station. So as the space station flies along, it's on that forward port. We need to get that vehicle moved up to the zenith port in order to let the next vehicle come up. We really want that Crew 2 vehicle on that forward port. So what we'll do is the actual maneuver is pretty straightforward. It's all automated. The crew will get in their suits, and they will get into the Dragon, and we'll do some leak checks in between the two vehicles. When we're confident that we've got the hatches all sealed, we'll depress that vestibule and then open the hooks on that docking port, the international docking adapter on the forward part. The vehicle will back away to a certain range, and then really it just does a translation and flies up, around, and comes in and docks to that zenith port. That translation is really short. It only takes about 45 to 50 minutes to do that. There's quite a bit of prep that goes into it. You know, a few days ahead of time, the crew will get into their suits and check the suits out and make sure those suits are functioning and working fine. We'll do some checkouts of the Dragon vehicle to make sure all the prop systems are working before we go do that maneuver. And then on the ground, we'll have teams available and ready should something happen to where we can't go up and dock to that zenith port, and we needed to either come back and try again 24 hours later, or also actually land. We'll have a recovery ship. SpaceX will have their recovery ship ready to go for the Atlantic sites off the coast of Florida. And then we'll also have the Detachment 3 ready to go, the DoD forces in the event that something would happen. So it's the first time we've done this in the U.S. I would say the SpaceX and NASA teams are taking this operation very seriously and working through checking out all the procedures, all the flight software, and just making sure we're ready to go do this. It's something that we'll do quite often, but it's the first time we'll have done it with the Dragon vehicle.
All right. Thank you, Steve. We have time for about one more, depending on how quick our answer is. But next we'll go to Marcia Dunn with the Associated Press.
Yes, hi. For either Steve or Kathy, I'd like NASA's take on the risk assessment using used vehicles. I'm just wondering if you think there'll be added risk because of wear and tear already on these vehicles, or will there be perhaps less risk than a brand new vehicle because it's flight proven? Could you just give me your latest take? Thanks.
Yeah. I'm happy to start out, Marcia. The vehicle, as Benji said, the launch vehicle and the Dragon were designed with reuse in mind, much like the space shuttle was designed for a certain number of flights. when we go through this certification process, we really look at every part of the vehicle. We look at the parts that are going to be new. As Benji said, there are new parachutes, new heat shield, new nose cone, and new components. And then we look at what we're doing during the refurbishment process. We've had NASA personnel down in Florida at Dragonland as the refurbishment happens. We have activities that we need to go witness and watch what SpaceX is doing. So overall, I don't really see any high risk in reuse because we've gone through it in a methodical process and we've checked as the components get reinstalled. And then if you step back and look at this flight, we are improving the risk posture of the vehicle by improving aborts, improving the pad abort capability, eliminating titanium in the propulsion system, improving downrange aborts by changing the software. So overall, I think this vehicle, we're continuing to endeavor to buy down risk in the program over time.
All right, thank you, Steve. I think we have time for just one last one. Irene Klotz with Aviation Week. Irene?
Thanks, Dan. For Steve, you mentioned OFT2 was a couple weeks down. Just wanted to check if that's delaying from the announced last week of April 10th and the current target dates for MS-18 launch, MS-17 landing. And for Benji, just real quick, when did the engine go out on the February 16th launch? Thank you.
Yeah, regarding OFT2, we are going to have to move off of that April the 2nd date, and we're continuing to evaluate options. As I said before, the vehicle is really coming together. We had a little bit of a power-up anomaly with some avionics components. The Boeing and NASA team worked really well to get those components reinstalled and checked out, and that was completed over the weekend. But we did lose time with the weather in Houston. We lost about a week of time, and it affected the facility that does software testing. So we're in the process of working hand in hand with Boeing to figure out when the OFT2 flight will be.
All right, thank you. And this is going to be our final one. We have Andrew Tangle from the Wall Street Journal. Andrew?
Oh, hi there. Thanks. Is that, are you saying that you all don't know when in April or later this year the uncrewed Starliner launch will be? And then my other question was about the recent statement by the ASAP panel, or a member of the ASAP panel, that it was imperative that the safety culture audit at Boeing be performed before the crewed launch later this year. Can you tell us what the status of that safety culture audit is, what problems, if any, it's found, and whether those have been addressed?
Yeah, I'll take the questions. Yeah, we are going to do an organizational safety assessment with Boeing. We've been looking at the right timing to do that audit. With COVID-19, it's problematic to do it in person, and these are the kind of audits that are best done when we can sit down and talk to the Boeing employees face to face. So we'll do that before the crewed flight test later this year. We've been planning that all along, and the ASAP pointed that out in their public remarks a few weeks back. So we've had that on the books, and we're going to go do that. And then the first question was relative to the OFT2 launch date. Yeah, we are going to have to move off of 4.2. It's a very busy time frame on the space station with the Soyuz mission, and then Crew 2, and then it's a busy time on the range. And so we're working hand in hand with Boeing to go figure out, when that launch date will be, and we'll just have to stand by for further developments on exactly when that flight will fly.
All right, thank you, Steve, and thank you to all of our briefers today. That is going to do it for us. Sorry again about the late start. But thanks to everybody for taking those questions and giving the answers today. Everybody be sure to tune in when we have the Crew 2 astronauts themselves talking live on NASA TV coming up at 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central Time for their Crew 2 news conference. And again, everything focused right now on no earlier than April 20th for this mission, so continue to stay tuned, and we will see you a little bit later today. Thank you.
one of the restaurants. The word you found that good song, the hum yourself, right? Alright, stand down. Okay, guys. Yep. Realistically, I think if we went to do the drone, we'd take the tool in a bag, but it'd probably be up. Yeah, you could go in there with the rest. And certainly if one person was doing this by themselves,
Alliance, we can go to Gregg County, we can go to Chenault. So Fort Worth. Sorry,
Victoria's just kind of got the.
Train, I would take the
yeah,
blue line, I think.
Okay.
Go right into, turn into the blue line. So it starts in Manami Rinkin near my house.
Yeah.
And then I was in Yamatoshi.
Oh, okay.
And then I'll stop at LCH, or do you want to do some approaches at LCH, or just go right to Chenault, just beat up the pattern? I'm not even sure if Lake Charles is open right now with all this stuff.
Oh yeah. been out there after the hurricane?
I haven't. We talked about it's going to be joining the Victor 70. Okay. Heading up to Chenault, or exiting the Victor 70 at SBI, and then into Chenault.
Was it SBI or which ones?
Which one? It's other one.
Yeah, sure.
I'm going to do that. LCH?
Yeah.
Or I'm going to set the missed approach altitude on there before I hit the button. On the PFD now, so now we're working our way around to the PFD. Got all the tiles at the top there, so most likely be on head.
This is the third part of your course today. We're going to do the demonstration in water, have a fun time putting together all the skills we learned in the first two classes into an actual water simulated environment. Water and Dahl will be your in-water instructor. He's going to be the one helping facilitate on the first run, as well as your in the water safety eyes. If you have it today, one with the force penetrator and one with the strop. I can give you more specifics as we're going through, but the force penetrator will be an up-down type thing. Put you back in the water, then we're going to transition you over.
Adjustment tab. These guys? Yep. Looking good.
And make your big signal when you're ready to hoist. I'm going to take you all the way onto the deck. Okay, so make a pull off there. Yeah, absolutely.
How have people been using the GoPro? They turn it on and let it run.
1.35. I know they have stools to get you guys in there too, so you're not hanging. 1.305. Disconnect it now. Go ahead and just disconnect it now, yeah. But it's squealing. Okay. Well, now I just want to make sure that it's not blowing anybody's eardrums out. Yeah, I just talked about that. So we would have 2 spares of Menox canisters in case of any issues during isolation. We're not going to do those steps right now. We'll go to steps 47 and subsequently with Rich. It's a good idea. Okay. And so the BTA. Okay, warning, per the Island Free Range protocol to prevent ECS, do not initiate depress until 30 minutes of mask removal. Like we've had 60 minutes per my time. That's what it really should. So each ENUSC with airlock, heat exchanger, water loop are all required to be scrubbed and hydrated every 10 days. So both of them.
Okay, let's see, on the EMU scrubber, check EMU 1 and 2 scrubber P3 is connected to J3 on the connectivity analyzer.
Yeah. Any questions about what we're doing? Street, self-explanatory. It's already worked.
Do we have the whole stack?
You have the stack.
So if there's a picture that you guys like, you can add it, or tell him to pick from the ones we selected.
Back up. It's going to be in the blank. Okay, the beam is not got a little beam. So, yes. Audio. Oh, we did have that message?
Yeah, we didn't have it initially. 16466, that event code?
Yeah, there it is.
Yep.
6466,
Okay. MCG status on the MCG summary.
I like that.
This is NASA TV.
Hello, everyone, and apologies for the delayed start. Welcome to today's briefing, the crew of the NASA SpaceX Crew 2 mission to the International Space Station. This will be the second crew rotation flight of a U.S. commercial spacecraft with astronauts to the International Space Station. The astronauts on that mission and with us today are NASA astronauts Shane Kimbrough and Megan MacArthur, Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut Aki Hoshide, and European Space Agency astronaut Thomas Pesquet. They will launch aboard a Crew Dragon spacecraft atop a Falcon 9 rocket to the space station no earlier than April 20th from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Shane Kimbrough is the commander of the Crew Dragon spacecraft and the Crew 2 mission. Shane has spent a total of 189 days in space on 2 missions and performed 6 spacewalks. He is a retired U.S. Army colonel and has degrees in aerospace engineering and operations research. Megan MacArthur is the pilot of the Crew Dragon spacecraft and second in command for the mission. Megan flew on the Space Shuttle Atlantis for the final Hubble Space Telescope servicing mission, but this will be her first trip to the space station. She holds degrees in aerospace engineering and oceanography. Aki Hoshide is a mission specialist for Crew 2. Aki is a veteran of 2 space flights, the STS-124 Space Shuttle mission to deliver the Japanese experiment module Kibo to the International Space Station, and long-duration mission Expedition 3233, where he spent 124 days in space. The Crew Dragon will be the 3rd spacecraft for Aki to fly to the orbiting laboratory. Thomas Pesquet will also be a mission specialist for Crew 2. Thomas flew as part of Expeditions 50 and 51, launching aboard a Russian Soyuz spacecraft and spending 196 days in space. His mission included 2 spacewalks to maintain the station. Now we'll hear brief remarks from the crew, and then we'll take questions. On the phone, please press star 1 to ask a question and star 2 to withdraw a question if your question's already been asked. You can ask questions on social media using the hashtag AskNASA. Shane, let's start with you. If you will each just tell us a little bit about how you're feeling and what this mission means to you. Shane?
We're ready. It's on the screen. Call and be live.
I hope not.
Adam?
Never know. Mm-hmm.
All right, stand by everyone, just a moment.
Okay, try to pitch it to him again, Megan.
Okay, everyone, crew, can you give me a nod if you can hear me? Awesome. All right, I have gone through intros, and I'm sorry we didn't have your audio there where you can hear, but we are ready to hear from you. So Shane, let's start with you. If you will just tell us a little bit about how you're feeling and what this mission means to you.
Thanks, Megan. Looking forward to flying with this great crew that you see on the screen. It's been the first time in over 20 years that a crew from NASA, ESA, and JAXA have flown together, so that's pretty cool too. We're looking forward to spending several months on the International Space Station.
That's fantastic. Okay, Megan?
Well, Megan, we get pretty intense with our training, especially in these last couple of months. So when the press conference arrives, you know that launch is just around the corner. So we are starting to get excited. We have been very busy with all of our training, and just want to give a shout out to both our NASA and SpaceX training teams that have done such a great job getting us ready. We're ready and we're excited to fly.
Thank you. Okay, Aki?
Yeah, I'm very excited and very privileged to fly with this fine crewmates and spend some time up there, especially flying on a new Crew Dragon. See what it's like to fly, and compare differences and similarity with shuttle and Soyuz. But it's gonna be a lot of fun up there. I'm very excited and ready.
Awesome. Yeah, we're excited to hear what you think about the launch. Thomas?
Yeah, and it's starting to be that time again when everything is the last EVA run in the pool, the last training of this, the last meeting with that. So it means the launch is getting closer, and it's a great feeling. It reminds me of my previous flight. So I think we've reached that level when we're almost ready to fly. There's a few finishing touches to put on the crew. We can't wait to start, getting to work. There's a lot of work to be done up there on the ISS. We're very motivated. And I know we're going to get some work done and have a great time doing it. So looking forward to it.
Very exciting. Thank you. Okay, now we'll take questions from media. Marcia Dunn with Associated Press. Go ahead with your question.
MacArthur. As you well know, you're flying in the same capsule as Doug and Bob. And what insight did Bob give you, not just about this particular capsule, but also about the space station where you've never been? Thank you.
Well, my husband has been very supportive as I get ready to go on this mission. It was but about 2 weeks after he got home that he took over kind of all the home-based duties and has watched me go through this pretty intensive training flow. So he's been there along the way to give me some pointers and feedbacks and things to look out for. And it's been really great having his advice along the way.
All right, let's go to Bill Harwood with CBS News.
Hey, thanks. 3 of you have flown on Soyuz, I guess, and 2 have flown on Soyuz and shuttle. Could one of you talk a little bit about the SpaceX experience in general? What you like about it, maybe what you miss about the other vehicles? I mean, given all that automation, I would think it's an easier flow than the other vehicles, but that's for you to tell me. Thanks.
Hey, Bill, I'll start. This is Shane. It's been really fantastic training with the SpaceX team and the NASA teams, of course, but it's a new vehicle for all of us. And so for me, of course, I trained on space station before. So for me, it's really exciting to have this new vehicle and go through the training flow with the SpaceX folks. And they've been fantastic. We're all still learning. It's a new vehicle. It's not one that has a lot of history on it. So as we go through and train, we get to make some comments and inputs. And they've been very helpful in listening to our comments and actually making changes to some of the procedures and some of the equipment that we may take on the vehicle.
All right, let's go to Chris Davenport with The Washington Post. We'll come back to Chris. Let's try Joey Roulette with The Verge.
Hey, thanks for doing this. I was going to ask if you guys have thought of a name yet for this capsule, but since it's being reused, I guess the name sticks as Endeavour. But is there a name that you guys wish you could give this mission, or is there anything you guys would like to characterize with this mission? Thanks.
Yeah, I'll start. I'll let the other crew members answer because I think everybody have a different taste. I'm really excited that it's called Endeavour because that's the space shuttle that I got to fly on. So for me, it's a familiar term to a spacecraft. So I'm really excited to fly on this Crew Dragon Endeavour.
All right. How about Mary Liz Bender with Cosmic Perspective?
Yeah, thank you for taking my question. Megan, you talked about the intense training that you've gone through in the last couple of months, and that's not something that we usually get to hear a lot about. And, you all just touched on the fact that this is a brand new vehicle. So can you talk a little bit about some of the most intense parts of that training and then whatever it is that you have to do prior to launch from now until then?
Sure. Really, the thing that makes the training intense is just the volume and variety of the things that we have to cram into our brains before we get ready to launch. So we're not only learning a brand new vehicle that we're going to launch in and how to monitor and operate in that vehicle, but we're also learning all of the things that we're going to be expected to do while living aboard the space station. And so that's not only caring for the space station, but it's also conducting a variety of different science experiments. That's really the goal of our being up there. We'll be doing hundreds of different science experiments in the 6 months that we're there. So we can't train for every specific thing that we're going to be doing. So we take a skills-based approach to our training and try to learn sort of broad-based as much as we can across all of these different areas so that we can tackle all of the different things that come our way.
Okay, the next question is from Mark Carreau with Aviation Week and Space Technology.
Thank you very much. Mine's for Shane and Megan. You're flying with an international crew that sort of, to me, looks a little bit out to what things might be like for Artemis. And I'm just wondering if you have any sort of sense of how that experience of flying internationally with partners that are joining NASA for Artemis, how does that sort of feed into the future?
Thanks, Mark. We've been doing this flying with international partners for many decades now, which has been fantastic. It makes all of our agencies stronger. It makes our crew stronger. And we're excited to have a very diverse crew if you look at ESA and JAXA and NASA together. And of course, like you mentioned, it's going to be part of the Artemis program as well. We hope more partners will join that as we go forward. But really looking forward to our crew flying together and experiencing this international crew.
I think, Mark, you've said that I myself are going to fly to the moon on an Artemis flight. That's what I get from your question. So I'm happy that you're pointing that out.
That's awesome. I'm sure he wishes he could make the rules. Let's go to Trevor Sesnick with Everyday Astronaut.
Yes, hello. It's Trevor Sesnick from Everyday Astronaut. I was wondering if Megan or Shane could talk about the big advantages from the shuttle IVA suit to the SpaceX IVA suit, and then if there's anything that you guys are going to miss from the shuttle IVA suit.
Go ahead, Megan.
Sure. So I think your question is asking us to compare the suit that we wear during ascent entry on the space shuttle to the suit that we wear for ascent and entry for the SpaceX vehicle. So I'm happy to address that question. We have spent a lot of time very recently actually working with the suit design teams at SpaceX to really customize our suits. They're very fitted in a way that our space shuttle suits were not. The space shuttle suits were designed more generically to fit a wider group of people, and so they're looser, and which makes them sort of easier to move around in, easier to get on and off. The SpaceX suits are definitely more custom fit, more tailored, and so that does present some challenges when getting in and out of the suits, but the suits are highly capable. The most important thing about any spacesuit is that it keeps you safe in any emergency situation, and it doesn't impede your normal activities that you need to do to operate the spaceship. And so I would say that both of the suits, both for shuttle and for the Crew Dragon, are able to meet those goals.
Okay, the next question is from NHK.
Thank you for taking my question. Well, I have a question for JAXA astronaut Hoshide-san here. So this is your third flight to space, and what is the expectation for the flight? Then I have one more question. You will be the second Japanese commander in Expedition 65. So can I have your thoughts on how you're going to lead this diverse crew as a commander?
Sure. I didn't get your first question. Could you repeat that?
Oh, sure. So this is Hoshide-san's third flight to space, and so I'd like to hear his Hoshide-san's anticipation for the flight.
Okay. Yeah, it's my third flight, so and especially third flight to station. So I know what it's like to live and work there. Of course, there's been a lot of upgrades since I've flown almost 9 years ago. But with this crew and the crew on board, it will be a lot of fun, a lot of different activities, different experiments, and I'm looking forward to that. And with respect to being the commander of the station, We don't know just yet when that's going to happen, but I'm looking forward to just working with this incredible crew members.
All right, let's take a question from Morgan McFall Johnson with Insider.
Hi, thanks for doing this. This question is for all of you. Just taking a step back and knowing that you're getting close to launch, what are you most anxious or nervous about? What, if anything, is keeping you up at night or giving you the jitters when you think about this mission?
Amal, you want to go?
Yeah, I can take that. I don't think there's anything really keeping us at night, because if you worry too much in that line of work, you're not going to last very long. So I think everybody's pretty relaxed, very professional, but also relaxed. I think we trust the system. I mean, NASA has put a system in work. SpaceX has a system. Everybody's contributing. Everybody's doing part of the job, and we have a lot of trust into that. So nothing keeps us awake at night. On the other hand, like Shane pointed out before, it's a new vehicle, so it's the third flight of the Crew Dragon, second operational flight after the initial test flight. So we need more data. We need a lot of launches. We want this to become, right away to get to the space station, which means, I don't know, down the line, hundreds of launches maybe. But we don't have this data yet. We don't have the statistics, so we're being maybe a little bit more cautious, and we tend to double check everything. And I think with that, and the fact that everybody's doing their jobs is going to be flawless. At least that's what I think about when I go to bed at night.
Fantastic. Okay, let's take a question from Ken Creamer with Space Up Close.
Hi, thank you for taking my question, and good luck to all four of you. My question is for Thomas Pesquat. ESA will be having its first astronaut selection in about 11 years, so I wonder if you could talk about what is your advice to them? And also, they're going to be para astronauts. Could you comment about that? And how often also do you think there will be flight opportunities for ESA astronauts? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question. Thanks. Indeed, we don't have selections as frequently as NASA does, because we simply have fewer flight opportunities to the space station. But it was time, I think, to hire a new promotion, a new generation. We've been around for 12 years already. And so we're looking forward to having fresh blood and new talents. Now we're moving into a different era of human spaceflight. We're going forward to the moon, and hopefully that's going to keep my generation busy in the years to come. But we still have the ISS and all the flights that are associated with the ISS in low Earth orbit. So hopefully those guys will going to be there to start taking that part of the job. My advice to them, you need three things, I think, to be an astronaut, at least in ESA. You need to have some academic background, because we're living in a technical, scientific environment. You need to have some operational experience, because you're also in a dangerous environment and your decisions have consequences. And you need to be international. With the European Space Agency, we speak all languages, and look at us with Japanese, American, Russians, and tomorrow maybe other nationalities on board the space station. So those are the three things that those guys should have. Last part of your question. We're looking at what it would take to send a handicapped person into space, because we're talking about inclusive. We want to achieve that in every sector of society. And so we're starting that project. We don't really know how it's going to go. We're going to study it hard and want somebody hired during selection to help us. And then we'll talk to all the partners and we'll try to make it happen. And that's going to be very exciting to follow in the year to come.
All right, let's take the next question from Martin Eels.
Hello, my question concerns all the crew. I was wondering if you are helping the Russians with the Nauka module and later with shooting the film of Director Shipenko. Thank you.
This is Shane. I'll start. Yeah, we haven't not been trained on that at all, and we've just heard just a few things probably through the media like you have about the potential film, but right now, currently anyway, we're not trained to help them out.
All right, let's go.
I can jump on a European robotic arm. There's a European arm that comes up on that module, and I might have some tasks to perform with that European robotic arm. So I've had some training, but there's still some uncertainties in the schedule. So we'll see what happens.
Okay, thank you. The next question is from Manuel Mazzanti with Debate.
So much, and congratulations to the four of you for your upcoming mission. This is a question for Aki. When Crew 2 launches, you will be on a very exclusive list of astronauts that have flown, had the chance to fly in 3 different spacecrafts, along with Shane as well. But out of that list, 2 are from Japan already, which is pretty remarkable. What do you think about that?
So, yeah, it is true that after Soichi Noguchi, who flew on Crew 1 and actually spending some time on ISS right now, I'll be the second Japanese to fly on 3 vehicles. But that's for now, and for the future, I think everyone's going to be, flying on different vehicles, either the commercial crew program vehicles or maybe going to Moon and Mars. So I think it's an honor for now, but I hope everyone else will get a chance to do that too.
Very exciting times. Thank you. Let's go to Ulrich Ebner with Slug Review.
Hi. The question is to all of you. Could you give us a brief overview on the vehicle training? For example, how long does it take to be familiar with the Crew Dragon, and where does the training take place?
Hey, thanks for your question. I'll try to start that, Megan, and Tama and Aki can jump in if they need to. Most of our training for the SpaceX vehicle, I think that's what you're talking about mainly, is done in Hawthorne, California. We do have some weeks here in Houston where we train because they have a simulator here as well. And the way the training kind of lines out, the first maybe month or 2 that you're in the training flow, you're doing a lot of academic classes, learning all their systems, and then you progress into the simulator where you're just doing kind of standalone simulations with just you and your crewmates, or maybe just in our case, Megan and I as pilot and commander. And then eventually you'll get into the simulation campaign with the mission control teams from SpaceX and NASA, and that's where we're kind of in that phase right now and kind of ramping that up with only a couple more weeks of that to go before we're ready to fly in space.
Okay, let's take a question from Marcia Smith with acepolicyonline.com.
Thanks so much. I'm not quite sure who can best address this, but my question basically has to do with how busy the space station has gotten. There are so many vehicles coming and going and spacewalks and all of this, and the advantage that you hear about by having so many of you crew aboard is that now you can do more science. But I'm wondering how disruptive it is to have all of this activity going on, because certainly when you're having dockings and departures and the things that must interfere with the scientific experiment. So could one of you who's spent a lot of time on space station already sort of talk about how you weave in the scientific experiments amongst all this other activity that goes on space station?
I can try that if you guys want. I think there's a part that is incompressible of the work we do on space station is just to be able to live and work on the space station, which is sleep, eat, exercise, take care of your health, and also manage the logistics. So this you'll always have to do, and you have to do it on the ground as well, except you don't really notice it. But so that part takes, I would say, it's just my guess. It's not official numbers, but I would say it takes 3 people full-time. So when you're a crew 6, you're pretty much doing 50% of your time, which is like really hard science, which doesn't sound much, but it's actually huge. And if you're going to a base in Antarctica, it's less. But so we're in that sweet spot. So if you start adding crew members, then initially you get more return, and then there must be a sweet spot somewhere where the curves intersect, right? We don't know where it is right now because we've never been more than 3 or 4 on the USOS side, but we're looking forward to figuring that out, and we'll see. Do we need 7, 8? Do we need just 6? Is it 5? I don't know, but what I know is that people are looking at it very closely, and there's very competent people on the ground that track every minute of our work on space station. They track everything we do, the output, the work, and in the different categories. Was it logistics? Was it science? Was it etc.? And they put together the statistics, and then they make the decision because it's fed back into the system. So there's a sweet spot somewhere. I don't know where it is, but I know that we'll find it.
All right, great. Next question is from Mary Liz Bender with Cosmic Perspective.
Yeah,
Thanks for taking my question again. I'm always intrigued by the ways that you might spend any free time that you actually get. Given the last question, I know it's a super busy schedule, but for anybody who wants to answer, are there any personal items that you're bringing with you that are special, or any particular ways you've thought about spending your free time?
Aki.
Kind of looking at each other. In terms of the personal items, I don't know, I'm still kind of thinking what to bring, and but my last experience on orbit, you know, I was just stuck on cupola, looking out the window and looking at the beauty of Earth. I called it a black hole because, you know, I think I'll go take a look for 10 minutes, but then 2 hours pass by quickly. It's that amazing, and I think I'll be doing exactly the same thing this time as well.
Definitely a favorite pastime. Okay, let's go to McFall Johnson with Insider.
Hey, I just want to follow up on a question that was asked of Megan earlier, but this time extend it to everybody. What advice or tips have you gotten from the astronauts who've already flown Crew Dragon? What have they told you about what it's like riding and living in the vehicle? And are you planning on taking any particular advice from them? Thanks.
Yeah, we've had the chance to debrief with Crew 1 a little bit right after they got on orbit, so it was really fresh in their mind after the launch experience, and that was very helpful to us. There are a lot of great advice on just little things to do here and there to live in that small space for the day or day and a half that we'll probably be living in it before we get to the space station. So those were helpful hints. The ride uphill from Bob and Doug and from Crew 1 was really great. There's parts of it where you're pulling G's, there's parts where you're not. It was just a really fun ride, so it seems very similar in some ways to the other vehicles that we've launched on. But I'm sure it's going to be a bit different with a couple stages that they have here, and I'm looking forward to feeling the second stage light and give us a little boost as we head up to orbit.
And I'll chime in with some more specifics. One of the specific things that Bob and I have talked about, you look at photographs of the interior of Crew Dragon, and it's a very clean lined vehicle. There's lots of little cubbies and hidey where your items are packed away. And so making sure that that's done very carefully in a way that the crew can get to what they need to get to without unpacking everything is something that they, I know, have talked a lot about with the SpaceX team, and the team has made a lot of improvements and changes and have been showing us, what these different changes are, and we'll have an opportunity just this week actually to really look at how the vehicle is packed, and it seems like maybe kind of a not something that's super exciting, but it can be really, really important, especially for people living in a very small space.
Okay, let's take another question from Marcia Dunn with Associated Press.
Yes, for Tomas and Aki. What will you be taking to represent your homelands? Perhaps some cuisine or other items or special things? Thank you.
Somebody, you go first.
I was going to say I'm going to take some Japanese food, but it's not true. But I'm going to take some. Yeah, there'll be some French food. I mean, it's a cliche, but I had to, right? There was no way for me if I didn't want to be stripped of my citizenship. So I had some dishes made by different chefs and different catering companies in France that I'm going to take with me on the space station. Not only for me, but obviously I hope to invite everyone for a good dinner once in a while. And because that's not so many things that you can really choose and have control on in the space station. So food is one of them. So there's this. There's also, I mean, obviously we'll have our own. I'm thinking individual flags. I'll put up my flag in Columbus. I've kind of claimed Columbus as a French territory for 6 months because nobody can prevent me to. And I have lots of patches and for for organizations or for friends and families because I'm trying to share the trip so that it's not only kind of a selfish dream that. But it also means something to other people and also does some good to other people. So I have a lot of things prepared, and I guess you'll have to follow the mission to see what's going on.
And I guess for me, something similar that Thomas just mentioned, but Japanese food. I brought some last time too, but they've added a couple of more. So looking forward to that. And if you follow Soichi Noguchi's YouTube video, he's doing an amazing job showing you what kind of Japanese food he's having. So again, just like Tomas said, I'm looking forward to sharing that with the entire crew on the space station.
All right, sounds good. Let's take a question from Gina Sunseri with ABC News.
This is for Megan. Megan, how has the technology changed since you flew on STS-125 will make it easier to stay in touch with your family when you're up there for 6 months?
Hi, Gina. Thanks for the question. Well, the shuttle mission that I was on, we did not go to the International Space Station. We did, in fact, have an iPhone with us, but our commander actually never let us get it out and use it. He wanted us to make sure we got all the work done first. So we didn't actually have the opportunity to phone home. We did have an opportunity for a single video conference with family, so I did take advantage of that. The long duration mission to the International Space Station, of course, will have weekly conferences with family, as well as the ability to use the phone just about at any time. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to surprising my mom with a phone call from space and calling friends and family when I have the opportunity.
Very cool. All right, let's take another question from Chuck Fields with Your Space Journey.
Thanks for taking my call. Human space exploration is growing remarkably fast, and this international mission with the refurbished spacecraft is a great example of that. This is for anyone. How do you hope this mission will inspire others to become astronauts or pursue a career in space exploration?
Well, we're going to do our very best to represent NASA and ESA and JAXA and SpaceX and the International Space Station. And hopefully by just our actions and the way we're professional and the way we have a good time as well, that'll just translate into some kind of inspiration for somebody. I don't know who's out there that's watching, but as you mentioned, it's an international crew, so that in itself can just show the possibilities that are out there. And I don't know if anybody else wants to jump on that, but that's all I have.
I think it's great. I think the fact that Megan is our pilot and she's awesome should inspire a lot of girls as well. And we're trying to reach 50%, in the application selection for the astronaut selection. This is difficult, but I think the fact that we have Megan and is certainly helping the cause. And I'm hoping next astronaut selection for ESA is going to be 50% male, 50% women, hopefully.
All right, awesome. Let's switch over to a couple of questions that have come in on social media. A reminder to all the media, you can still ask questions using *1 or withdraw your question using *2. And you can ask questions on social media using the hashtag #AskNASA. So from Deanna on Facebook, she wants to know, how will your particular science discipline be used and advanced during this trip?
That's a great question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Shane.
Is there a scientist among us?
There's one.
Well, what I was going to say is one of the things that's really wonderful about the job that we get to do is we all have training as scientists and engineers, but the research that we do on orbit is not necessarily directly related to our individual discipline that we came through, for example, in graduate school. So, we get very general training, and as a scientist and an engineer, you get training across, basic concepts, physics, biology, chemistry, mathematics, mechanics, and you're using all of this knowledge that you've gained throughout your education, bringing that with you to NASA, where you get some more specific training in how we conduct experiments. But really, you're relying on this generalized training that you've gotten, and then the expert procedures that have been developed and the well-designed experiments, basically, to enable success for the research that we're doing on Space Station. Of course, I haven't been to Space Station yet. This will be my first long duration mission. I'm super excited about it, and so probably one of these guys can tell you a little bit more about how their own background translates into the research that we do.
Yeah, so the part for me, I came from an operational background, and that definitely came in handy. Tama alluded to it earlier, but when we're running procedures and we're working with equipment, it's very operationally oriented. So for me, that's one of my strong suits, I think, and it definitely played out on the space station.
It's a complete team effort. I want to say we're just kind of the tip of the spear, but the people running the experiments are on the ground and they're just telling us what to do. They write the procedure, they design the hardware. So you could be doing some medical experiment. I have zero background in medicine. I mean, we get some training here, but obviously it's not enough to be an MD or a PhD, obviously, far from it. But there'll be some very, very smart people on the ground kind of directing us and telling us what to do, being there to answer our question. And that's what makes the science efficient, is that we're doing our best, but we have a lot of help.
That's great. Yeah, we'll have thousands of researchers from across the world, really, that are the ones behind these experiments you'll be doing. Let's take another question from Facebook. What will you miss most while in space? Is it pizza?
No, because we have it on board the space station. So, you guys.
I think, okay, I'll jump in. I think, apart from food, we have a lot of variety on the space station now in terms of food. So it's good that we have the varieties, because sometimes you eat one thing and you wish you have something else. Now we have a lot of variety, so that's good. On my last long duration mission, what I missed most was like fresh food, which nowadays you get every time we get a cargo ship docked to the space station. So that's good. The other thing was nature, like just the wind blowing in your face, or the smell of trees. That's something that I noticed that after I came back that I missed most.
I think there's also sometimes the freedom to be able to do what you want and just go where you want and meet the people you want, which obviously you cannot do on the space station. But the funny thing is actually not funny at all, but is that now I think people can relate to this a little bit with what happened in 2020, and people have experienced what it is to be kind of locked in one place and deprived of the freedom to travel or go see the people you want to see, and so that's going to happen to us for 6 months again. So I guess this is also something that when you come back to Earth, you're very happy to get that freedom to do whatever you want and go wherever you want again.
Yeah, of course, we're all going to miss our families. That's a given, I think. That's the hardest part for a lot of us. But for me, I'm going to miss a hot shower. We don't have showers on the space station, which surprises a lot of people. But I will definitely miss that. And to add on what Aki was saying, just nature itself and weather and wind and smells of Earth will be greatly missed after a month or two of being out there.
All right.
For me, in addition to all of those things, I think one of the things that I'll miss is the act of preparing a meal from scratch. So preparing food and getting to share that. We'll of course have some meal times together, but I think it will be different cutting open a pre-prepared meal versus being able to create that yourself in your kitchen. That's something that I'll miss.
It's my type of cooking, opening up a ready-made meal.
We'll be excited to see what you can come up with up there. All right. From Jacqueline Irving on Twitter, what is the biggest difference between Dragon training and shuttle training?
I'll start with that. So there's some similarities in it. The training for us will be about a year, a little less than a year for some of us, but the shuttle training is about a year to a year and a half. So that's similar. The difference, one big one, is that you go to California for most of your training, and instead of staying in Houston, and we went to Florida a lot more in the shuttle training than we do now for Crew Dragon. So there's some differences there. They're both space vehicles. There's systems that you have to learn. There's very similar kind of academic training and simulator training that we're going through. So those are probably the biggest ones. Obviously, it's a different rocket that we're launching on. It's a different spacecraft. But the flow in general, about a year long, and a lot of the same kind of, I guess the template is pretty similar, where you're going to be academics and then simulators and then kind of go to the launch pad. So looking forward to hopefully it being somewhat similar. I know the ride will be a little bit different, but hopefully that helps answer your question.
Yep, thanks. Let's take a question from Rebecca on Facebook. What are you most looking forward to?
Yeah, it's off. So I think one of the things, we're looking forward to at this point, obviously, is getting started. We've been, like I said, really intensively training for about a year together and individually, and, really looking forward to that moment where the mission actually begins and we get to try out all of the things that we've been preparing for the last year.
Agreed.
All right. Thank you. From Jacqueline on Twitter, what part of your mission are you relieved is automated, and which parts do you wish was automated?
Wow, I mean, the spacecraft it's a futuristic spacecraft, and it pretty much can do it all. Like even Soyuz and shuttle were automated, and you only interacted with it if something went wrong in general, and flew the thing manually. So this is no different than that. It's the technology is much different, of course, and we're doing touch screens instead of like a joystick in your hand to fly the thing. So that's pretty exciting. And we're Megan and I are trained to take over manually during any phase of the flight, if need be, but hopefully we'll just be along for the ride and get to enjoy it.
There's one part that I wish was automated is on space station, just to find the items that you need to find to do your work, because there's so much things up there, because there's lots of different experiments, lots of equipment. Station has grown big over the years, lots of modules. And so it takes some time to find the things you're looking for. There are thousands of items that are being tracked from the ground, tracked from database on board the space station. So if you could just press a button and everything was going to show up to you, and you could do your work, that would be brilliant. But I don't think it's happening.
All right, we'll add it to the wish list. We'll take another question from Ulrike Ebner with Slug Review.
Hi, this is a question for Thomas. As it is your second flight, are there any things you intend to do differently from the first one? For example, looking out of the window more often or enjoying the sound of the lounge. I don't know if there's anything you wish to do differently.
Yes, I wish to do everything better than the first time, first of all, hopefully, because with a little bit more experience, more training, and the experience of the first flight, hopefully less mistakes, everything should be better, I hope. But then, yeah, my first flight was I was so excited. I had prepared, I had waited for a long time. I had a lot of things that I wanted to do, lots of projects, and I was always constantly busy with things to do, with small videos that I wanted to make, pictures, a journal, calling friends. I was going to make sure I was going to call all my friends, because you never know, maybe it was going to be my only flight. So every single minute of every single day, I had something to do. I had something in the back of my mind constantly. Sundays, evening, doesn't matter. That just never stops. So now for this second flight, I think I don't want this to happen, because it kind of prevented me from enjoying it a little bit. So I think I'm going to take some time just for myself with nothing to do, which I know is unbelievable, but just 15 minutes for yourself with nothing to do. Just drink a coffee, look out the window, and just soak it in. Don't take a picture, because if you take a picture, you have a picture, but you don't have a memory. So instead of taking a picture, make yourself a memory, drink the coffee, spend time with the people, and that's what I'm going to try to do for that second flight.
All right, thank you. Let's go to Randy Seagal with WSTU Radio.
Good afternoon. Quick question for you guys. The Falcon 9 apparently has been having some problems lately. Does that cause you any angst? And also, as a second question, is there any surprises, Megan, that your husband may have left for you?
Well, I can answer the second question. I don't know, or I guess it wouldn't be a surprise. So I'll find out when I get there, I think.
And your first question about the Falcon 9, yeah, there have been a few issues. I know the teams are working very hard to work through those. We've been briefed about every month on the updates of our spacecraft as well as the rocket. So we're very confident that they're going to figure out whatever's going wrong. And it's just been a few little things on a few of these rockets. They're launching almost once a week. So when you're launching that often, everything's not going to go perfectly. So there's nothing major or catastrophic that's happening. It's just a few things on the rocket that I know they're going to get worked out before our flight.
What about sleeping quarters when you first get up to the station?
That is the magic question, I think, sleeping quarters. So it's going to be crazy with if we do a direct handover, they call it which means Crew 1 and ourselves will be up there along with the Soyuz crew. So that's a lot of people on the space station. Right now, there's only 6 sleep stations on board the entire space station, 2 on the Russian side and 4 on the U.S. side. We hope to have 1 more installed before we get there, which would give us a little bit of flexibility. But really, for the handover time, if we hand over, say, about a week or so with Crew 1, we're going to be kind of, I think, in a camp out mode, or one of the crews will be in a camp out mode where we'll find a place to, to sleep on a wall somewhere or a ceiling. It doesn't matter up there. And then the other crew will be in the sleep station. So we haven't worked out which crew is going to do what yet, but we're looking forward to it. It's just going to be a short, time, a week or so or less that we'll be potentially handing over with them. And sleeping will be, although it's important, it's a pretty short time. So I think we can all handle a camping out trip for about a week.
Definitely. Okay, let's take a question from Martin Eels with Blesk.
I would like to follow with the comment of Basket about so many things on a station. How often do you bump into something? Thank you.
How do you not bump into something? Don't tell NASA or ESA, but we sometimes bump into things, especially at the beginning. We're trying to be very careful. But like you said, there's cables, there's equipment. The equipment is designed so that it's not so fragile that you cannot even touch it. Or if it is, then it's put behind a rack, behind a wall, and it's protected because everything is designed and engineered for a space flight. But I think you get used to it. Initially, the first few days, or depends on the astronauts, can take longer, can be shorter. But you have to figure out a new way to move your brain to rewire, its different sensors and provide you with a good understanding of your environment. So sometimes you bump, sometimes you go too fast. You want to take a turn, you miss the turn, and if you miss the turn on space station, you go straight, and whatever's in front of you, you're gonna bump into it. So we're gonna try to minimize those events. But knowing that it might happen, and we've seen it happen, it's not a big deal. But you just have to be very careful, very cautious, very methodical at the beginning, and then not get too overconfident as you learn how to fly over the course of a long mission.
Okay, a question from Lucy Auberg with ASP.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. I'm sure you probably all watched Perseverance landing on Mars last month, and I know you're very much concentrated on your current mission, but are you all dreaming about going to the moon and then to Mars, especially now that you'll be flying with SpaceX, a company created with the goal of going to Mars? Does it seem more and more tangible, and are you all dreaming about that?
Oh no, I just pointed at myself. No. It doesn't work.
Shane, you want to start with that?
We all had the chance to watch the landing together, actually out at SpaceX. So that was pretty neat. Obviously a historic moment, and we were very excited for all the teams involved, especially the folks at JPL that worked so hard on landing Perseverance on Mars. That was really special. I know I'm not going to be going to the moon and Mars, but my colleagues who are much younger than me might have that opportunity. So even though I would love to do that, I think my flying days will be over after this one.
For Aki and myself, who've just been assigned to, if no, I'm going to stop saying this because I'm going to get in trouble with ESA. But I think what's important is if you're watching robotic exploration, is to understand that those are just 2 branches of the exact same thing. We're trying to explore, we're trying to get further into the cosmos. Those are not 2 competing activities. And people like to see it that way sometimes, which bothers me, because when you talk to the scientists, being behind the rovers and all the interplanetary missions, they say we can't wait for humans to be on the surface, because the scientific return is going to be so much. It's going to be 100-folds or maybe 1,000-folds. But obviously it's more complicated. Obviously it's more dangerous, and that's why we need those precursor missions. That's what we need. All the tasks that can be carried out by robots and rovers, for sure. Please, absolutely, they have to do it. They need to have budget as well. And those are not 2 competing activities. Those are 2 branches of the same activity. And I think we work as a team, and there'll be scenarios in the future when we work even more closer together.
Thank you. Well, we're so excited to see you up on the International Space Station doing research that will help us get people to the moon and Mars, and then to see you or maybe your colleagues on the moon and then eventually on Mars. And I think that's a good place to wrap up. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Thank you to the crew for answering questions. And be sure to watch this crew launch live online at nasa.gov, on NASA TV, or by following NASA on social media. You can also follow all four of these people on Twitter and keep up with them throughout the mission. And be sure to check those sites for updates and follow along on their whole mission. Thank you, everyone, and go Crew 2.
Go Crew 2.
Go Crew 2.
I was strolling on the moon one day in a merry, merry month of December. Now, May, when much to my surprise, a pair of bunny eyes. Do-do-do-do-do. Oh, is this a neat way to travel? Isn't it great? Dum-da-dum-dum-dum. 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 I like to skip along.